Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to all of you to this channel StudyIQ. In this video, I will be discussing the Sino-Indian War of 1962. My name is Dr. Mahipal Singh Rathod and I am a faculty for History and General Studies at StudyIQ. Our pendrive and tablet courses are available for CGL and CHSL exams as well as the upcoming CDS and CLAT 2017 exam. You can call on this number to order or know more details about the pendrive course, or you can order directly from the website where there is a discount going on until the end of this year, that is the 31st of December. So the War of 1962 had its origins in the relation of India and China since their independence and establishment. So in 1947, India gains its independence from British, and in 1949, the People's Republic of China is established. It is established by the Communist Party. The Communists and the Nationalists were fighting a civil war in China, and this civil war was won by the Communists and they established this People's Republic of China. Initially, both the countries had very good relations because both the countries were coming out of long periods of disturbance. One was coming from long time of war with Japan and the civil war, China that is, and the other country, India, was under the shackles of British Empire. So the Republic of this PRC, People's Republic of China, was not acceptable to USA, UK and many other Western countries because it was a communist country. So they did not recognize it, they did not allow it to join United Nations. But India was one of the first countries to recognize China, as well as it favored its admission to United Nations, and Nehru vehemently proposed that China should join UN as soon as possible. In fact, in 1960, Jawaharlal Nehru gave away the power of veto which was offered to India. It was given away to China. Nehru said that India will never need the veto power because we are a non-aligned country, and he gave it away to People's Republic of China. Mao Zedong was the chairman of China. He was also the architect of the Chinese Revolution or the Chinese Civil War because he was the leader of the party from a long time, and along with Zhou and Lai, he was also a leader of the Communist Party. He was at the post of premier. So this premier is more like the position of our prime minister and chairman is more like president. So although Mao was the president, but he was the main ideological force behind China's policy. So in 1950, China annexed a place called Tibet, an area called Tibet. So this is Tibet, the one in red color, as well as this area written as Qinghai. This was also historically a part of Tibet. Now Tibet was an independent kingdom, an autonomous or a semi-autonomous type of kingdom. Since long time, even during Chinese Empire of Ming dynasty, they had semi-autonomy. Tibet had semi-autonomy. They had their own government. They had their own ruler called Dalai Lama, which I will be discussing later. But China, the newly established country of China, they said that since traditionally and historically this region was part of Chinese empires in the past, so this has to be a part of the newly formed China as well. So they sent their army and they annexed this area. Now this brought India and China directly into touch. Initially, Tibet was having its boundary with India. India did not share a direct boundary with China. But after annexing Tibet, India and China now had a direct boundary. And even at that time, some people in India said that China could now wage a war with India or it could threaten India. But Nehru had good friendship with the leadership of China, and it was said by him that China can never invade India. In 1954, India and China signed the Panchsheel Accords. It was a treaty according to which there were 5 principles, and mainly they dealt with peaceful coexistence. Now, according to this Panchsheel, India said that we will not interfere in each other's internal affairs, and such it was an open acknowledgement that Tibet is now under Chinese control. The many countries in the world were against the control of Tibet by China, against this annexation, because China was the Chinese army was doing many atrocities against the local population. But India did not say anything. Government of India openly accepted that Tibet was traditionally a part of China, and yes, it will be a part of China. Now we come to the boundary dispute between the two countries. Now this border between India and China had been undemarcated since a long time, even since the British time period and when the time period of Chinese Empire. So it was mostly based on local traditional areas of dominance and the natural barriers, mainly the Himalayas. The mighty Himalayas had formed a natural barrier between the many empires on both the sides since thousands of years. But there was a small agreement called the Shimla Agreement. It was signed in 1914 between the British Empire, the government of Tibet at that time, and the Chinese government. So these three had participated in a small conference in Shimla to demarcate these borders, but there was some dispute because after that there was a revolution in China, and so later the communist government did not accept the borders which were marked according to the Shimla Agreement of 1914. And in this Shimla Agreement only the McMahon Line was decided. I will tell you the McMahon Line now. This is the McMahon Line, the red colored one in the north that you see. So this is the McMahon Line which demarcated the border, and this is the state of Arunachal Pradesh. It is administered by India, but it is claimed by China as a part of South Tibet. China says that this Arunachal Pradesh is nothing but an extension of Tibet. So this is Tibet, this area is Tibet. So this will be South Tibet. This is Tawang. Tawang is a place, and it is very important because it is a place of a very important monastery in Buddhism, the Tawang monastery. It is very famous, and also it is at a very strategic location between Bhutan, India and China. You can see its position. It is a very strategic position, and China invaded via this place only in 1962. The largest offensive was via Tawang. One more thing, you should know this term, NEFA. It means Northeast Frontier Agency. This was the administrative division formed by India in 1954 to administer this area which we call Arunachal Pradesh today. It was called the Northeast Frontier Agency. It was separated from Assam and a different agency was made. So whenever you come across reading about the 1962 war, you will come across this term, NEFA. Now during the war, this was also called as the eastern sector, because as you can see this is situated on the eastern part, and the part here in Ladakh in Jammu and Kashmir, this was called as the western sector. Although it is the north of India, but if you see this is the west and this is the east part. So you might come across terms like western sector or eastern sector. Then I will talk about this western sector, another disputed area which was Aksai Chin. So this is Aksai Chin. It is a plain, it is a flat plain which is situated at great heights in the Ladakh plateau. So this is Ladakh, as you might know. So this area is called Ladakh. Now Aksai Chin is mostly uninhabited. People do not live there, but it is an important trade route. Right from ancient time periods, it was part of the Silk Route, and it is also used by herders or nomadic people who go there for pasture land. There are fertile pastures here where they travel to, but it is not permanently inhabited by a large population. Very little population here and there. The majority of population is in this part in Ladakh. This is mostly uninhabited. So since many hundreds of years, no one gave too much of thought to this area, and they did not mark the boundaries. Even the earlier Chinese Empire and the Kingdom of Kashmir, or later the Sikh Empire which annexed Ladakh in 1842, the Sikh Empire, they annexed this area and then they had tried to attack Tibet, but they were defeated. So at that time there were no actual boundaries. It was just that whichever army or whichever kingdom dominated, they had a nominal control over this area, and there were no boundary markers or anything like that. So that is why this area is disputed. But the Indian government claims that this is the boundary because this was decided in 1865, and it is sometimes also called as the Johnson Line. You need not remember this, it is not very important, but there was this British person who decided this line. It is called the Johnson Line. You remember the position and location of Aksai Chin, and also for your geography part, remember this lake that you see, the small snake like lake, it is called Pangong Lake, the famous Pangong Lake. It is also called as Pangong So. and this is another small lake. It is not very small actually. It is called So Moriri. The word So in the Ladakhi language, it means a lake. So Pangong So and So Moriri. Please remember these two lakes. Now this line is the line of actual control, or the LAC. You need to know the difference between LAC and LOC. LOC is the line of control between India and the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and LAC is the line between India and Sichin or China. Moving on, in 1956, China constructed a road in this Aksai Chin area which was linking Xinjiang to Tibet. So you can see this is Kashmir, this is Ladakh, and this is Aksai Chin. So there was a highway constructed from Xinjiang. This is the Xinjiang province of China. From there to Tibet, they constructed this road, and this went on via Aksai Chin. India at this point of time was claiming this area, but we did not know about this road for almost 3 years. We came to know in late 1958, 1959 when Chinese maps started publishing this road on their maps. In 1959, another cause of trouble between India and China was Dalai Lama and Tibet. So in 59, the people of Tibet, they rose up against the military, because the military of China was doing a lot of atrocities on the people. So the Tibetans rose against it, but this was rebellion was crushed by the Chinese military, and during this rebellion the Dalai Lama had to flee. He had to run away from Tibet to save his life and to avoid arrest. So he came to India. He was given refuge by India. He was greeted by Jawaharlal Nehru. So this is Dalai Lama. I am sure you must know him, you must recognize him. And here he is in 1959, a young Dalai Lama along with Jawaharlal Nehru. So when Dalai Lama came to India, he also established a government in India, and this was the Tibetan government in exile. Now you have to answer me, write in comments, where is the headquarters of this Tibetan government in exile situated? It is in India somewhere. I will give you a hint. It is in the state of Himachal Pradesh. Please write down where is it. Now this government in exile is a big issue between India and China. You need to understand this. Even today, China has a very big problem with anyone giving recognition to Tibet or anyone inviting Dalai Lama. In fact, when Dalai Lama goes to places like Tawang, the foreign ministry of China, it officially gives its complaints to India that you should not allow Dalai Lama to go to Tawang because it is not part of India. Even today, when Dalai Lama went to Mongolia some time back, Chinese government threatened Mongolia that we will stop giving you any kind of materials, aid or any kind of money. After that, Mongolia decided, even though Mongolia is a Buddhist country, it decided that they will not call Dalai Lama to their place. Now Dalai Lama is the spiritual and political head of all the Tibetans. You have to understand this. He is not only the spiritual but also the political head of the Tibetans. So he is leading a movement for the recognition, for the international recognition of Tibet as a separate country and for the independence of Tibet. After this, in 1960, Zhou Enlai, the Chinese premier, he visited India on a trip, and he proposes that we should have a status quo. That means that Aksai Chin will be with China and the Northeast Frontier Agency will be with India, and also each of us should retreat 20 kilometers back. We should keep our armies 20 kilometers away from the border. But this was rejected by Nehru because he said that Aksai Chin was a part of India and we cannot just give away any part of India to China directly. And also this 20 kilometer thing was a problem for India because we did not, Nehru by this time had some issues in trusting that how can we send our army 20 kilometers back. Now due to this fact, due to the past 5 years, you have seen from 1956 the relations are going downwards. Due to that, there were a lot of skirmishes on the border. Skirmishes means a small fighting between two groups of soldiers from China and India. It means there are hardly 4 or 5 soldiers on a patrol, and they came across Chinese soldiers, and there was small fighting going on here and there. but they were mainly on board with border patrols, and they did not lead to war. But there were quite a few deaths of Indian soldiers in these skirmishes, and pressure was mounting on the government to do something. Now, by this time, Nehru had also realized that China will not sit down quietly for its border dispute, and it will do something, and most probably there will be a war. When this realization dawned on the Indian government, they decided to follow a forward policy. It is said that it was suggested by the Intelligence Bureau to Nehru that you should follow this forward policy. According to this, the Indian army should be sent to the frontier areas, and they should occupy all the forward posts. They should not remain behind at relatively safer places, and not just patrol the areas. Initially, what they did was they just went from this point, they did a patrol along the border, and then they came back. But now it was suggested that you make a post here along the border. Let's say if this is the border, that now posts should be made here and the soldiers should be placed in these posts. So along the McMahon Line as well as in Aksai Chin, many frontier posts were made, and many forward posts were made. Some of these posts were even north of the McMahon Line. Now this is very important. I'm sorry for the spelling mistake here. It is McMahon Line. Now some of these posts were even north of the McMahon Line, and this was a huge issue for China. China regarded this as Indian aggression. China said that India wants to occupy Tibet, that is why they are building their forward posts, and this was the reason given, this was the official reason given by China to go to war with India. Now the war started in 1962. As I told you already, since 2-3 years many border skirmishes were going on, but finally on 20th October war started. How did it start? The start was also due to a border patrol, because one Indian patrol team was going, there was some firing upon that, then Indian army, then a larger group of Indian army went, and again that was also attacked by China. This was all in the Nefa area, that is in the eastern area. So on 20th October, war broke out, and China was already ready for this war. They had brought in huge amounts of ammunition, soldiers in Tibet, so that they could supply towards the border area. In 4 days, China overran the Nefa and Tawang. In just 4 days, China came through Tawang, and it almost reached up to the areas of Assam near the Brahmaputra river. They reached out to the outskirts of Tezpur city in Assam, and this is situated near the Brahmaputra river. But after this 4 days, there was a lull in fighting, because terms of negotiations were sent by Zhou Enlai to Nehru. So for 3 weeks these negotiations went on, but finally they broke down, and Nehru did not accept Zhou Enlai's proposal. They had again asked that our soldiers should be sent 20 kilometers from where they are now, and accordingly already China had come inside around 60 kilometers inside India, and so going 20 kilometers back would be occupying almost 40 kilometers of Indian territory. So Nehru did not accept these demands, and thus fighting broke out again on 14th of November. That was the birthday of Jawaharlal Nehru, and for a week very intense fighting went on in both Aksai Chin as well as the northeast areas. In Aksai Chin, there was a very famous battle, the Battle of Rosangela. It is a place in Ladakh near the town of Chushul. So this Rosangela was a very important place. La means a pass. Please remember this. You might have seen Nathula, Bomdila, Pensila. All these names are in Ladakhi language or in Tibetan language, where La means a pass. So the pass of Rosangela, this was on the road to Chushul, and Chushul had an Indian Air Force base. It has an airstrip which was very vital for India. So the 13th Kumaon, led by Major Shaitan Singh Bhati, they were placed here at Rosangela, and they stopped an advance of thousands of Chinese soldiers. It is said they killed around 1,000. Some estimates say this was around 500. Some estimates say around 1,800 Chinese soldiers were killed by just 123 men of the 13th Kumaon. It was a historic last stand. It is one of the best last stands in the history of warfare, modern warfare. And remember, this was at the height of 17,000 feet. It is very high. It was freezing cold, and the brave soldiers of India, they fought at such high altitudes. Out of these 123 men, 114 were martyred along with Major Shaitan Singh Bhati. He received a Paramveer Chakra posthumously. So when the war ended around 1386 Indian soldiers were killed in action. KIA means killed in action. It means they died while fighting. They were martyred for the country. And around 1700 soldiers were missing in action. We could never find out where they went. And almost 4000 soldiers were captured by the PLA. They were made prisoners of war by the Chinese army, but they were later repatriated. They were sent back to India. So you can see that it was a huge loss to India. There was no use of Air Force or Navy. It is very strange. India thought that if we use our Air Force, there will be retaliation by Chinese Air Force over Indian cities, and we did not want to risk it. One of this kind of strategy has been unique to India, because even in Kargil war we used such kind of strategy. We did not use our Air Force very much. We did use it a little bit, but not very much. And Navy, we did not use it at all. When India used all three, it had huge success. Like in 1971 war with Pakistan, we used all three, Army, Air Force and Navy, and we got huge success. Also, this war is famous for its high altitude warfare. Many of the battles were fought over the altitudes of 14,000 feet, 15,000 feet, and as I've told you, Rosangela was at the height of 17,000 feet. So this was a unique feature, and India was not equipped, Indian soldiers were not equipped to fight at such high altitudes. Another reason was the geography or the topography of the area. It is very difficult from Indian side of Himalayas to take up machines, artillery, to lay down roads. It is very difficult because Himalayas are very steep on the Indian side, while on the other side, if you see here, see on the Indian side the Himalayas are very steep, while on the other side there is the Tibetan plateau, and the land is already raised, so the slopes are not very high from the Chinese side. This is why China can easily mobilize, while it is very tough for Indian army to mobilize from this side. So this was also one of the reasons that we could not use tanks, we could not use artillery, big artillery guns, while on the other hand China brought in small tanks to its fight at various locations, and these are all the factors which led to the defeat of India. Now on 21st of November, China unilaterally announced a ceasefire. What is a ceasefire? It means stopping of fighting. It means the stoppage of fighting. Now the army retreated back and beyond to the McMahon Line in NEFA. It means that they had come inside around 60 kilometers inside the McMahon Line, but they went back, and in fact they retreated till 20 kilometers back, as Yuan Lai has said. 20 kilometers they followed it. The Chinese went back 20 kilometers. Also, Aksai Chin was now firmly in control of China. Initially, it was not in control of India, although it was not in control of India, but Indian patrols still went quite inside. They went around 30-40 kilometers inside Aksai Chin. But after this war, the line of actual control was established, and in 1993 it was officially ratified. It means India and China signed a treaty which said that line of actual control is recognized now, and we will not go inside each other's area of line of actual control. And due to this, Aksai Chin is now firmly in control of China. On the other hand, the NEFA, or the Arunachal Pradesh, the state of Arunachal Pradesh, which was created in 1987, this is firmly in control of India. Now, what were the reasons of this sudden Chinese ceasefire? It has been speculated a lot. So the few reasons were, firstly, the objectives of China were achieved. What was the objective? The first one was that show of power for territorial dispute. They wanted to show that China is not a pushover country. It is a big power in Asia, and to settle its territorial dispute, it is ready to go to war. Secondly, Indian forward policy was checked. Now, India had vacated its forward posts, especially in the NEFA area, and also in Aksai Chin. They went back and occupied the posts which were a bit behind the border. So both their objectives were achieved. Also, India had asked to USA for help. Nehru had written a letter to John F. Kennedy asking for US Air Force support, and USA and UK and also USSR, they were supporting India. They supported India. A very unique feature of this war was that it happened at the same time as the Cuban Missile Crisis, in which there were Soviet missiles stationed in Cuba, and they had threatened America, and there was a very tense moment when USA had stopped ships of USSR which were carrying nuclear warheads, and the world was very near to nuclear war, but it was stopped. And at the same time, this Indian and Chinese war was going on. Now, as soon as the Cuban Missile Crisis was over, USA was thinking of entering the fight. It could have entered the fight if China had stayed in the fight for too long, because USA was a capitalist country and they were totally against communism and they wanted to check the spread of communism. So, to prevent that, China announced a ceasefire and it withdrew. Now, what was the impact of this war in India? Firstly, Jawaharlal Nehru's prestige suffered a huge blow. His stature as an international statesman and diplomat, he was the foreign minister of India, he had kept the foreign ministry himself, and he conducted many negotiations with world leaders. But all his negotiations could not bring China to the table. China had offered many things, but they could not agree. Also, he had been calculating wrongly. He had misjudged China's intentions completely. It is said that it is one of the biggest blunders of Nehru that he did not see what was China planning. He considered China to be very good friends. He had signed a treaty with them. They had very good relations, but China backstabbed Nehru. It is said that they backstabbed him, supposedly, not literally. And so Jawaharlal Nehru suffered a huge blow to his prestige, both domestically as well as internationally. This you have to remember, Henderson Brooks Bhagat report. This is very important. It was in the news last year and in 2014 as well. So this was a Henderson. So two very senior officers of the Indian Army, Lieutenant General Henderson Brooks and Lieutenant General Bhagat, they were authorized by the Indian government to write a report to analyze what were the reason of failure of the army. And it is said that this report criticizes the Indian government, the Indian military, and it is in 2014 there were some leakages of this report by an Australian journalist, but in India it is still classified and it is not available. Now, after this war with China, India started its own missiles program. So DRDO, we started our own program, missile development programs, and also we strengthened our army, bought new weapons, and all of this helped us in 1965 and 71 wars. Finally, India became wary of China. It means that up till now, we trusted China completely. We thought that China would never invade India. Maybe we will have differences, but they can never invade us. Secondly, we also thought that the Himalayas were impenetrable. It has always been an Indian thought, Indian thinking, that Himalayas can never be penetrated. So China can never attack India. India can never have any attack from the northern or eastern borders. But this was shattered because of the 62 war, and India has now to be ready with any kind of possibility, because we have Pakistan on one side. Earlier we thought that Pakistan is the only threat to India, but now Pakistan in the west and China to the north and to the east, both are a threat to India, can be a threat to India. They are not a threat to India right now, but we have to be ready, cautious, and always be on our watch. Thank you very much for watching this video. You can leave your feedback in the comment section. Also, you can ask any questions regarding the topic. I will try my best to answer your doubts. And please answer the question that I have asked in the video. That is, where is the government in exile situated in India? The Tibetan government in exile. Thank you.